Hey everybody, here from Fire.and.flavor. Today I'm talking to who will remain anonymous from 12 Tokens Hot Sauce. We're going to talk about how he got started, why he remains anonymous, and this one sauce that we have today. So let's get to it.
Hi everybody, welcome to Fire and Flavor. Today, I am with the creator of 12 Tokens Hot Sauce. How are you doing today?
Good, I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thank you very much for coming on. We're going to keep your identity a little bit of a secret, and I'm all for it, man. I think that's really cool. So I guess we can hop right into it. So let's just, how'd you start this? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I think just for some context about myself is that I have a marketing background and particularly in, streetwear. So initially I had started a clothing brand and I had entered that world and I had seen, the communities that built, the marketing behind it, and that really that's a product that's a total commodity because a t-shirt or a hoodie or anything in that, sort of space, it's a single, it's fabric, right? Anyone can make their own fabric and slap a logo on it. And dumbing it down, that's really what it is. But taking that experience, I was able to see all of these creative people find these workarounds, these ways to build these brands and gather a community, and these different sort of cultures and things that they could play into. And I saw an opportunity here, right? Because hot sauce has this ability to be fun and have cool names and be interesting. Unlike for example, I thought of other products as well that of course, every industry can be disrupted, but hot sauce already has some of that. But I felt there was an opportunity to take the consumer in my demographic, right, or the consumer who is interested in something that is not necessarily prone to purchasing hot sauce, but again, it's sauce, so inevitably everyone can use it. But I found a sort of a gap in the market there, and that's what really inspired me to get into this.
That's pretty cool, man. And yeah, I mean, I've never seen anyone do quite what you're doing. It's kind of a faceless brand. You give out collectibles with every order, which is I think is fantastic. I actually have one right here. This coin, this token. Um, let's talk about that a little bit. Like, I want to know what made you come up with the name 12 tokens and that come up with this collectible to go with it.
Yeah, so it's two-sided here, right? I think for me, it's that an industry and something I like to be in is, exclusivity and collectibles. And, the reality is creating something that's collectible and feels valuable is very hard when you're starting off because, the coin, when it's tangible and you feel it, has power. But of course, it's a coin from a hot sauce brand you found on the internet, right? So how do I give that value? And giving the value was in a reward system, right? So when you collect 12 of those tokens, in the current status, this is being just fully transparent with the audience here, is I'm looking through who's ordered what amount and making sure they get an automated email when they hit 12. And again, being transparent, that's been one person, but that person gets the email. And this time I reached out individually and I sent them a care package with, things that no one else will ever have ever, right? Like custom products, etc. Um, but going forward, I think that will change. And of course, that lets me play into that collectability element and maybe, my again, this is being honest here, the long-term plan is to have, exclusive items on the website that are, exorbitantly priced, like $1,000 for something, but the only way you can buy it is when you will get the 12th token, you'll get an automated email with a code and it will make that item free, right? So 12 is my favorite number. And, the tokens was just so that perfect sort of customizable gift that, quite frankly, is not necessarily from a business perspective the most, you know, I wouldn't say the greatest idea, but I would say that there is a lump sum in terms of a mold and designing it. But it was definitely something that I felt was worth investing to in creating that sort of collectible and community portion. And just to build on that, I think something that I've realized, especially that, again, you learn as you go here, but understanding this off the bat would have probably been a better strategy here. Is that the reality of hot sauce and this industry is that it's the way people become profitable is by repeat purchases, right? And
Yeah.
inevitably, total sort of mistake or total fluke here, I've created a way in which I can try and reinforce repeat purchases, right? Because acquiring that first customer is really hard because it's, especially when I'm being exclusively online as of yet. And the one downfall of the tokens, as you will see here, is that in the short term, it's very difficult to consider even specialty shops because how do I make sure when someone orders from a specialty shop or they go pick up a bottle there on vacation and they get the coin, how do I make sure that I have that in my system, right? So it's constrained me a little bit, but it's also provided me some growth. it's definitely one of the, beautiful sides of the business, but also one of the challenges.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely you have to invest a little bit into that too. Like you to
Right.
spend some money to have these made, and that can't be cheap. But what I like about it is, yes, it's something I can keep to commemorate. I can, acquire more and get another cool thing from you. I just don't see people doing that very often. It's really cool. And not only that, it just, I don't know, dude. Even like the design of your bottle is so carefully thought out and like, you definitely put a lot of effort and money and time into this, so I think it's a good risk that should be taken, you know what I mean? You wanna create an experience for someone buying your product and to be like, "Oh, yeah, I got something cool from them. I didn't just get hot sauce, I got a memory," or I don't know. I think that's really cool, man.
Yeah, that's the exact concept. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. So, like, you said one person got all 12 of these so far?
Correct. So I had one individual who purchased 3 bottles because, just again, nothing to hide here. Part of the marketing system is when you order over a certain threshold, you get free shipping, right?
Yeah.
So that person put together ordering 3 was made more sense for them, maybe based on the location, based on the shipping. They know they're going to, eat the sauce anyways, right?
Mhm.
And again, I assume they finished all the sauces or they were really excited. They purchased 9 more and, sent them those. And then at this point, I sent them a personal email as well as they got the automated one when they hit 12. Got a personalized email. I mean, I wrote them a letter, etc. And I found, a way to create some individually exclusive items for them. That was, a great experience. And I'm really happy that that person was able to, not only now have a stock room of sauce, but also have, not only the 12 tokens, the physical tokens, as well as stuff that, quite frankly, no one else will ever have. And I will say going forward, there will definitely be exclusivity to the items, obviously, if depending on volume, but it's nice to know that someone got things that no one else will ever have.
That's really cool, man. So I've seen on Google, I was doing a little deep diving just to see, doing my due diligence to see what I can dig up. And obviously there is not too much. But I did notice that there is another variant of this token and it had no paint. So are all the tokens the same thing, or are there some without paint? Are there some painted? Is this a newer generation? What's up?
Yeah, so in the current status, there's two. There's the black and silver, and then there's just an all silver coin as well.
Okay.
And then going forward, we're just going to create different variants based on, quite frankly, when these are gone, they're not coming back. So if you have the black
Oh,
and
wow.
silver, that's great. And then when those are through, again, this is a little bit of a manufacturing lesson here, but the mold is made.
Yeah.
Changing the colors is not incredibly hard or difficult, right?
Right.
Million different options to change those things, or even going forward, creating a coin only for people who purchase the 12 tokens, and maybe they could select that as the reward. There's a bunch of different ways in which I can reinforce that, but I would say that my plan without a doubt is once the black and the silver are gone, finding an alternative color or color palette and working from there.
That's cool, and I did wanna note that you included a case for it, which is really nice. So whether you're collecting all 12 or not, you should collect all 12. They don't have to send them back, do they? No.
They don't,
That's
and
amazing.
that's the beauty of the digital world is tracking
Uh,
online. That's the beauty of being D2C.
yeah, that's really cool, man. I can't wait to see more of those come out. Again, dude, I love collectibles. I'm kind of a nerd, honestly, and I love collecting toys and things like this. If it's collectible, I probably want it. I have a blind box addiction, and that's not what you're doing necessarily, but it just like kind of gives me that same like endorphin rush, like that serotonin. I'm like, yes, that's so nice. I get something
Yeah,
cool with
I,
this.
I definitely, I
It's
definitely
like
get that.
it's like a kid opening a cereal box and finding a toy, you know? I
Mhm.
love that, dude.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I would say again, something that I've even considered was quite honestly, it's really expensive, but do we try blind boxes, right? Like being just a hot sauce company, and this is something that, I guess I'll explore as the business expands. When I do that might take 2 years, that might take off 20 years, right? But it's
Right.
taking on these different routes of how can we make sure things we're not just, pigeonholed in maybe the sauce is the home run product, right? But
Yeah.
building it out as a community if people are interested in collecting things, and maybe this is their introduction into the brand, right? And it's not necessarily exclusively. I mean, the way I would sort of think about it is right. It's if you think of like liquid death, it's just water. It's
Right,
water,
right.
right? But it's an experience, and there's great marketing, there's community, etc. And how can they have merch and different products, etc. And that's something that I think is more powerful than a single product, especially now in the world of these huge companies that control the majority share of some of these industries.
I hear you. I wanted to come back and talk about your bottle a little bit. I had mentioned before that it was very well thought out, and I do stand by that. But now we're talking about like blind boxes. You could totally make this into like a figure, and it would just black and white would be perfect. Make it look 2D, even if it's 3D. That'd be sick.
That's exactly what I thought about, as well as making different variants of the ties for different rarities, or
Yeah.
the skin on one of them glow in the dark. That's been a thought of mine as well.
So, how did you come up with this character? Is it just like a guy working at his mundane job and just tired of it all and wanting to break from that mold?
Exactly, and that's part of the reason I'm currently blurred right now, is because this not my current job. My current job, I would say I'm satisfied with, right? But I was working in actually CPG, and it was not necessarily something I enjoyed. It was quite rough. It was a lot of man hours, and I was incredibly unhappy. So it was my thought is that, hey, I can see this company. They weren't in hot sauce by any means, but I could see this company that's making these consumer packaged goods, and I'm seeing this. I'm working this mundane job, and I'm seeing these products that have not changed for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
How can I provide a twist or a spin to that? And the reality is, the way I thought about it is, regardless of the fact that this product is very replaceable, and that you could probably find someone to make a very similar product, it's not what's important. It's what made this company have such like first of all, the history is why it's so powerful, but they had a strong brand that resonated with kids and families, etc., right? So what's an audience that hasn't been played into? What's something that can excite the younger generation, and now that they're hyper exposed to things like Prime, or all of these huge sort of influencer based brands? And how could I find something that gives that value, but just in a different way?
Very cool, man. I like it. You're a very interesting guy. I'm gonna say that right now. I think your whole approach to this is so different. I've never really quite talked to anybody with this vision. A lot of people that I talk to are just kind of like, yeah, during COVID, I was, bored and what am I going to do with myself? So they started a hot sauce company. And I don't know. I love this whole approach you're taking towards it. And I really love the brand expansion, the anonymity, which we'll get into in a second here. And, it's just, this is different, man. This is something special, and I think a lot of people are gonna pay attention to it, and then obviously that's your intention with it. So,
I agree.
anyways, speaking about the anonymity and the mystery behind your brand, it your website's very minimalistic. Your bottle even is very well designed, but still, why did you choose for this in particular? We might have touched on it a little bit. I know we did privately, but let's just like deep dive into that a little more.
Yeah. So are you
Both
showing
and
sort of the art
why
style?
we're not showing you. I mean, like,
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So I think in terms of, well, I guess the art styles, pretty simple answer. I just thought it was, aesthetically pleasing. I think it looks great, and I think that, it's something that's consistent and memorable. And I'm not by any means an artist. Of course, I have to use third parties, but I know what I want, and I think something I'm proud of is I have good taste and I have good vision. But if you give me a pencil and paper, it'll be very ugly, and I constantly refine it. And that's sort of the beauty of the age we live in, is that people are accessible. Of course,
yep.
especially if you're using these, again, being transparent. If you want great art, there's great people online who are not that expensive, and you can find what you need. So I would say that that's a great outlet as well, especially just living in the modern world of the internet here. But I would say that in terms of just being anonymous here, right? It's that, for one, we just sort of covered the bottle image, and I haven't really intensively shared that with anyone. And that's not I wouldn't say it's like intentional or not intentional. I think a little sneak peek here is I have a claymation video coming about and talking about why I started the business. Not really saying who I am, but coming out with that. I worked some jobs, was not happy, and that I felt I could provide something better, and I felt that there was a gap, right? And I'm not afraid to talk about those things, but telling until this is my full time, and if and when that happens, it's very difficult to say, hey, here's who I am. I hated my last job. I thought I was smarter than everyone, right? So that's the reason to that, as well as, I think that another route a lot of these big brands are taking is through, these big influencers and these big, people, and a lot of these brands are influencer owned. So if I'm not opposed to showing my face, but I think I want to do it on my terms in the way I want. And then being transparent here, if I was able to build a big audience and then slowly introduce the sauce, or slowly, realize that, hey, maybe this isn't a great fit for this audience, and that maybe that's, there's some other out there. Maybe it's not a great fit for the brand at all, right? So there's a million different, sort of thoughts on that, as well as, maybe there's another person out there who's the perfect face of the brand who someday, I'm being honest here, I probably can't afford anyone like that, right? But maybe someday there's someone, or there's a group of people who are great, influencers who have amazing following, who, fit that aesthetic and are, great at talking on camera and performing a certain way and providing that sort of, lifestyle that I want the brand to resonate with. So there's a lot of different options there, but I think that, again, from that clothing brand experience, there was, yeah, this is actually a great learning point here, is I would run a clothing brand on Instagram, would not show my face at all. I'd run the TikTok page and I'd show my face constantly. And I was attracting these two different audiences. And it's very, very, in the world of streetwear, it's very niche and, like a tight knit community. A lot of people are hypercritical, right? So you have the Instagram people who want to see these brands with white backdrop product photos and on a garage floor and all these, professionally shot photo shoots. Then you have the TikTok people who like the UGC, who like the transparency, like someone talking. And those both work well on those platforms, but the people they attract are quite different. And
Yeah.
then my brand was caught in the middle. And ultimately, I feel like, that's why things didn't go well, right? It's that
Right.
I think I found a lot of super, super fast growth followed by really big fall off, especially, again, this is whole story for another time here, but that business and what I learned from that experience is I was leveraging huge influencers. The beauty of clothes, unlike hot sauce, well, maybe this opportunity exists in hot sauce, but everyone wears clothes, right? And even if you don't pay them, they're going to put on the clothes and wear them. If you give them a hot sauce, they eat it in their fridge, they might not record it and they're not leaving the house with the hot sauce. But clothes, different story.
Right.
So I was able to get, some connections to some of the larger TikTokers at the time. They were wearing the clothes, there was huge spikes, massive spikes. But then I would get, quite frankly, the audience that watches those TikTokers, which is kids, and that's not the same audience as on the Instagram, who are super, niche, diehard, exclusive clothing people, right? And that really created conflict. So I would say, I know there's a lot here, but summing that all up is that it's really, really, touchy for me to want to put direct people with any association except on their own, sort of terms, and let the community grow on its own.
Very cool. That was a really, really in-depth answer. Thank you.
Yeah, of
Hey,
course.
I wanted to walk back a little bit. You mentioned you were doing a claymation video. Is there a clip of that on Instagram? Is that anything to do with that, or is it a
Yes.
separate thing?
So I have one clinician on the feed right now. It's through a great guy. Excuse me, I can't pronounce his name, but he's based in Mexico. He does a great job, and he created the first ever clip, and that was before I had anything on Instagram. Right, I had no social media at this point. That was in the works at the same time as everything was being done on the logistics side. But he created a great video. I would say that, being, honest, part of my concern with that video was a little, intriguing, right? People are like, what is this? They didn't it's not they didn't understand it, but it was intentional that it was, sort of mysterious and confusing, and that you're like, well, and you're learning about the product, right? Whereas the next focus, so first of all, that video is live on Instagram if you have any
No.
interest. But second of all, the next video is built on, talking about how I worked X amount of jobs and showing sort of a path of how things were created and about a little bit about the token, etc. Mind you, it's 30 seconds and people's attention spans are probably less than that anyways. But it feels like going forward that will be, a little bit of a better understanding piece, right? I think it's very difficult to balance being anonymous and cool and, edgy, for lack of a better word, and exciting, while also being, relatable and understanding. Like, of course, I think it's amazing when websites have, 5 stars and they have testimonials under it, right? I think that's awesome. But the problem, and I even have a post about this on the feed, the problem with that is that when you go to the website and see those things, I think it does really well for certain brands, but it's not the same person shopping on Amazon that might be from, a niche, liquid death type of website, which is, again, that's the example I use because this is the CPG space and that's probably the biggest company, but there's a million, like, clothing brands, for example. They don't have reviews, they just have some product shots, the description, very clean and simple, right?
Right. Yeah, man, and I really do enjoy your branding. I'm actually looking at your Instagram right now. I have before, obviously, it's how I got in touch with you, but you use, like, cardboard dioramas and stuff, and I one of my good friends, actually the guy that does the artwork for my show, does a lot of cardboard artwork, so, like, seeing yours definitely reminded me of him, which is a big reason of why I reached out to you. This is all very surreal. It's like I don't know. I'm gonna pop some of it up on the show so other people can see it if they don't keep the Instagram, but I really, really enjoy the whole aesthetic. So I don't know, man. I'm all about it. I'm all about us like doing this.
12 tokens. Burn your taste buds, not your soul.
So what do you consider like the ideal customer for your cherry hot sauce here? Like some obviously people who want to collect all the tokens, but like are you more about flavor or is this hot?
I would say the average person would probably say it's slightly above. I would say it's slightly above the average person's comfort, but it's
Okay.
not to the point of. I would say anyone could try it without having to run to the bathroom, right? But I
Right.
would say it's, for someone who says I don't like spicy food, probably not a great choice, right? But at the same
That's fair.
time, I would say it's very difficult because my gauge is so skewed, right? It's because
Right.
it's hard for me to think about the public perception, but I would say my friends who say I don't eat spicy food, maybe not, right? My
Okay.
friends who say I can eat spicy food here and there, sure.
That's cool, man. And have you always been like into eating spicy food or
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that, eating spicy food has been something that I've always enjoyed. And I'd say that especially like it's very interesting. And what I've realized over time is my tolerance to different types of spices is very different, right? Like I'm Asian American. So, I mean, I have Chinese. So my family would often eat Chinese spicy food, which is completely different than if I go to a Mexican restaurant and try their spice, or Indian
yeah,
restaurant, right?
yeah.
It's very different in that, the Chinese restaurant, when the hot pot is bright red, I have no issue. And maybe I'm sweating because inevitably I do. But when I go to, the Indian restaurant, I'm asking for medium or mild, right? Which is just,
Right.
completely sort of culture shock, right? And I think that I've always enjoyed spicy food. I think it makes food taste better. And for all of the people there who are, I think this is another niche that I've thought about exploring. And actually, before this business that I decided to explore was, the fitness niche, right? Maybe a fitness hot sauce. That's part of the reason the sauce is 0 calories is for that reason. But inevitably, I thought about how, as someone who tries to eat healthy, when you're eating this chicken and rice and these bland foods, the secret is always hot sauce, right?
Yep.
It is how can I make my food taste better in a way that's not terrible for me. It's not a spicy mayo or a
Mm.
Chick-fil-A sauce or anything like that, which by the way are great and they're amazing and they're delicious and I think that's awesome. But I think that it's very, there's always an option that everyone can be happy with or at least satisfied with.
I agree, and that's something I kinda say on every episode is I think there's a hot sauce for everyone. Mild to mild, uh, but there's gonna be some kind of flavor out there that even if it is a little spicier than your threshold, you're you're gonna be willing to eat it because it's that good, and you're right, the answer to bland food is always hot sauce. I don't really do spicy mayos and anything either. I prefer just a good old hot sauce, man.
And I think sort of to build on your question about the ideal audience, for me, it's that having something that's not only, great for people who love hot sauce and are, deep in this world of hot sauce is great, but there's also a whole world of people that I feel are not really exposed to hot sauce, right? There's a lot of people who aren't purchasing, small batch hot sauces or they're going to, farmers markets hot sauce specialty stores, etc., that have not been exposed to hot sauce. And one of my goals is to show people that, hey, there's different options. And even if, quite honestly, even if they feel that it's not their, not to say a better or a different option, but it's they use it the same way they'd use another sauce, it's that, you're getting a different experience, right? You're bringing people into the world, into hot sauce in a way that hasn't been done before. I would say that, the reality is the top selling sauces are, probably ketchup and mayo from Heinz or these big companies. And, realistically, whether you buy the grocery store brand or the ketchup brand, it's just sauce at the end of the day. But I think
Yeah.
that what really is, strong is that when you have a community and when you have something that's different and just something disrupting is when things are set apart. Like, of course, sauce is the number one priority, but I feel that, being someone who's been in a vacuum before of the clothing brand world and being someone that's in a vacuum now of the sauce world, is that I try to see things from a broader perspective, in the sense that I've definitely, from the clothing brand side, right? It's that I've seen a lot of these brands that would be hyper successful, and everyone who is in that niche thinks they're really cool, hyper niche audience would say this brand's terrible, this brand's terrible, but the brand would do amazing to the general public. And maybe that's something that, everyone should learn from, right? Is that, of course, there's something that's awesome about being in this niche group of hot sauce creators and people, and, in this tight knit world. But at the same time, there's a million other people who, are open to these things, that don't know about it, and that maybe are feel a little daunted or don't understand, hey, why would I want to purchase this hot sauce from this random person online or at this farmer's market when I could just go to the grocery store, right? So it's really finding a way to introduce those people and find people that, maybe not are not typically interested in hot sauce.
That's awesome. And yeah, like I was saying, there is definitely a hot sauce for everyone out there. So it's in this kind of world where there is, ketchup and mustard, you definitely want to stand out because, and this definitely, I haven't even had it yet. Just looking at it, it stands out. This is, I think I would definitely just grab this if I saw it on the shelf at a store. I like it. Use some interesting stuff in there too. We'll get into it later. We don't have to dive too much into it, but some of the ingredients you use are pretty good, like lemon zest and clove. I've not seen that yet in hot sauce. Um, so this is cool. Sorry, I'm just like reading over this. There's a lot of information on there. Where do you want to take this in the future, man? Like where else do you see this going? You have like this whole brand built off anonymity, and it seems like you have a straightforward path on what you want to do. So are you comfortable talking about any of that at all? Like what
Yeah,
like your end game is, or your not your end game, but your like goal?
yeah, definitely. I would say for me, something that I am trying to do is build, I guess I want to make sure I'm phrasing this correctly here, is building the IP of the brand, right? It's that character I want to be memorable, the logo I want to be memorable, and that I think sauce is the entry point, and I think that that's, a powerful point. But if there's, a better version or a refined version of another sauce, or adding, something that I want to keep relatively proprietary, is there's a concept for a sauce. I'm struggling to figure out the solution to this. I may have to, look into food scientists, etc. But adding, different alternative ingredients, like the example I always use, which is not what I'm looking into, is, for example, if you made a sauce with CBD, right? Which, first of all, I've not necessarily my interest, right? But I would say that there's a way to add, unique twists, the way Truff added truffle, etc. And mind you, cherry is great, but I know there's definitely an ingredient that it's a little hard to work with, that I'm interested in as well. So maybe that's the home run product, and maybe that's from there just creating variants, because that ingredient, in my belief, is, something that has benefit as well, right? So maybe that's one solution. Or again, we talked about blind boxes, right? Maybe the collectible element is what really rockets the business, and then we talk about blind boxes. We talk about different sort of products, merchandise, etc. And I think that for me, it's that my number one priority is making things that people find interesting and cool and creative and find value in. So if I wake up one day and everyone says, hey, we see this reward for all 12 tokens and we like this more than the sauce, we keep the sauce. That doesn't have to go anywhere, but we can provide, an outlet for people who are not necessarily dying for hot sauce. We can provide something that's something that they're interested in, based on, not just being, pigeonholed into the sauce brand.
That's cool, man. So you're really trying to make this something that can morph into anything really, while keeping an experience for the consumer.
Definitely, but I will say, one of the downfalls of a lot of brands and one of my concerns as well is I don't want to be too spread out, right? It's
Mm,
that
right.
being the hot sauce and being the cool hot sauce and being the anonymous hot sauces might just be the path, and maybe the collectibles is too expanded. But of course, I feel like it is the core. Maybe the coins, the sauce, and exclusive, excuse me, products for people collecting them is the ideal business model. But at the same time, there's a lot of room to grow and experiment and create culture and value. And I feel that a lot of brands now build community and culture, just not they're not single product, or even if they are a single product, it's because of that community and culture that fuels them.
It's awesome, man. Do you I already forgot. Do you plan on coming out with other sauces, or is this just like your one? Are you kind of still feeling it out? Because I know you said you might branch into something else if you need to and
So
keep it, or
for now, I'm saying this is my skew for the short term, quite frankly, because of volume.
yeah.
That's just the honest answer. But I would say that I'm not opposed to it. There's a conceptualized second product.
Okay.
Quite frankly, it's far away, and that some things need to be perfected. But what I would say is that, again, a lot of the easy route would be to create, a second sauce with a different taste, and that's it, right? But the route I'm interested in, and the route that I feel is ultimately the reason I'm working on this product, is that, yeah, okay, this is a whole other thought that is floating around, I guess, that I've never really addressed. So initially, I had a concept for a sauce that would be a lot more difficult and expensive for unless it's scale, right? And this
Right.
was sort of my stepping stone to that. But in the collectible, and of course the collectible, that's part of who I am, that's part of what I like. So it's if the collectibles, I'm not to say that the collectibles will ever go away, but it's that if the business is built enough to take, risks that I know are calculated, it's worth doing. But there is a concept for another sauce that I truly believe is quite powerful, and that I think would be, really disruptive. But I also know that I would say that would be the amount of risk I've taken in this business is high, but that would be, exorbitant risk, right? It would to do something, it would risk the entire business. Whereas, again, this is not to give people a business lesson here, but there's an amount of risk you can afford to take, and then there's an amount of risk where you're pushing that, hey, maybe this is just burning money, right? And that would have to be an all-in play, right? And I'm not sure I'm ready for that. I'm not sure
Gotcha.
I'm ready to risk this entire concept over one product yet. So, but I also don't like taking the route of, hey, I'm just gonna make a this deal, right? So
I
it's a
gotcha.
little that's sort of where I am.
I gotcha. So you just kind of want to see how this rides out for a bit, and if you can't afford to take that risk. That's cool,
Yeah,
man. I think
that, that
the whole like image you portray with this definitely is eye catching. People are gonna want to try this and they're gonna want to collect your stuff. That's what got me right away. I thought this is so cool.
right, and that's another thought, right? Maybe I'm overcomplicating this, and it's just make things that are collectible, make things that are cool. The sauce is working. If maybe there's another route as well.
A lot of people see hot sauce as like a novelty item, right? So a lot of people don't buy hot sauce because they think it's just meant to burn their face off. Whereas someone like you or I would, we're looking for something that's flavorful while also spicy. But it's funny because I haven't tried this because this is still kind of novelty if you think about it. And I don't mean that as an insult because I'm sure it tastes delightful. It looks like it does. It's just it comes with this collectible item and stuff. So there is like a bit of novelty behind it, which I really like that you're able to combine both worlds, but without sacrificing the flavor because people want to come back and buy it. I know that I buy a lot of hot sauce, dude, and I eat a lot of hot sauce and I can't go through it quite as fast as I'd want to. But in the past, I used to just kind of buy whatever was too hot for me to handle and see if I could handle it. And I'd buy a lot of stuff like that. It would just sit on my shelf or in my fridge forever. So when I read the ingredients on this stuff, um, you know, it looks like you actually put a lot of thought into this and then just like make it something that's meant to kill me or anyone who tries it.
Right. Yeah, I would say that My goal has never been to make something that doesn't appeal, not to say to the mass, for lack of a better term, just like the niche masses, right? Or I mean, for example, blind boxes are, of course, like a trend right now, and I think that they've always been. I mean, people have been collecting, cards or blind boxes or whatever it may be for the longest amount of time, right? And those
Mhm.
are huge communities, right? So I think that in fact, I know that I want to make something that's, not only, not to say it's not for everyone, but it's also, it is for everyone, but it doesn't have to be either, right? It's that anyone could collect the coins, anyone could be interested, but it's also, I don't see the same person who's walking the grocery store having that same interest, right? And
Right.
for the masses completely, but it's also for everyone who wants to be a part, right? It's inclusive, but it's also not, solely mainstream.
That's cool. Do you want to sell this stuff in stores at some capacity, or like how would you do that? Would you like have like a code people could redeem? Would
Yeah,
it come with a
that would be.
token?
Well, this would be the plan. The plan would be to have. Right now, I don't quite honestly margin thing. If I want, in fact, I have it designed. I have beautiful package designed, but it's not dollar effective to order the volume I need of custom packaging, all four sides, custom color, and it can fit the coin and everything. Right?
Yeah.
It's not really cost effective in the current moment, right? But if I
Yeah.
had if everything, let's say it was all financially, if everything made sense, the strategy would be to have the coin in the packaging in that protective case with the sauce on top in a cardboard, four-sided box like a rectangle, and then following that, the inside of the cap or even on the even on the case of the coin would have a code you'd redeem. That would be, the long-term scalable way of doing this.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I was curious about that because I love this. Like I said, dude, if I saw this in a store, I would grab it, especially if it weren't a cool package, man. I'm such a sucker for stuff like that. And you don't see a whole lot of hot sauce come that way. I mean, I've got plenty of cool like boxes of hot sauce and stuff, but nothing with like, a collectible with it, man. So
Sure. Yeah.
so I guess I can skip some. I was gonna ask if you would ever do like expos or like conventions or anything. Like, would you be doing that? Would you like disguise yourself?
I would, and I think again that would be something where I just show myself, and that would be fun.
Yeah,
And I'm not
yeah,
opposed to that, right? And I think that the reality is it would be very difficult for me to. So expos and conventions, it depends on the context, right? If the goal is to go there and solely to sell through, absolutely. I mean, of course, that's the fundamental part of the business. But a lot of these, sort of my understanding is that these sort of events are, not some of these events rather are focused on finding a retailer, right? Or if you're going to something, you're in the search of finding someone who's to be a distributor, et cetera. I think that's a different challenge, and that's something that I would be a little more hesitant on, right? And not that I wouldn't, I would of course show my faith, and that'd be totally fine. But it would be that I'm not sure if this is a logistical nightmare yet for me to be in X amount of stores. Even the store, there's a store in proximity to me that only sells hot sauce, believe it or not. And it's like being in there, someone buys the coin, and I live in a city with a lot of tourists. I want to make sure I can honor and respect that, right? Without them having to personally email me, and even the way it is now, I don't have. It'd be very expensive for me to purchase the quantity of boxes I need for a single retail
right,
location. I would not be profitable in that regard. And then maybe that's a brand experience, but I don't want to overcharge the customer anyways, right? But
yeah,
nonetheless, if I had the product in the store break even at the local area, right? With how could I respect my customer when they get the coin, get the bottle, and then if they ordered more bottles online, how can I respect them and make sure that they're not having to go out of their way to email me and figure things out that way? And
right,
that seems like something that's honestly not hard to figure out in the long term if things, were massive on the D2C side, but we're not there yet.
right. Yeah, it's all about just like being able to afford the make sure you can supply and demand.
Right.
Supply the demand rather. Have you had any like creative ways that people have used your sauce yet? Any cool reactions? What's like the we don't have to talk about like reviews or anything or but like what's one way someone has said they've used your sauce before?
Yeah, so I would say that the majority of people are the number one I get is eggs. I think eggs is great. I use it on eggs myself. I think that's just a staple for hot sauce generally. I wouldn't say it's, hey, this is perfect with eggs, but I think that it's just, a staple and it works very well, but it's not, built for eggs by any means. I would say that there's nothing, over the top crazy or, exciting, but of course I'm excited for those moments and that's something that I look forward to. And that's the beauty of, getting to see what people say. And, you know, being honest, I haven't had any negative feedback on the actual product yet, which is a positive, but it's also a negative because I don't, sometimes it's good to hear criticism, right?
Right, right.
And that's, something that I'd like to hear, of course, but I think that, for me, it's that I'm not. I'm excited to see consumer response, but I'm relatively, fresh in this as well, and I'm excited to see all those things. I would say, the reality is a lot of people have this perception of how much volume of hot sauce is being sold, but quite frankly, I can tell you from my perspective, and this is just for everyone who has any interest and wants to do their own research, is the reality is a lot of these, D2C hot sauce brands are probably not selling the volume in which you think, right? It's really, difficult to advertise, especially online for a hot sauce and getting it mailed to your house. It's a certain type of person who really loves hot sauce or is really interested in your product that will do that. And it's not the same as someone who say, hey, I'm going to buy this. It's easier to justify, buying a t-shirt you may never wear than it is to buy something you may never eat that sits in your fridge, right? Because
Right, yeah.
the perceived value is way, way higher of something that is a t-shirt, even though it's really just fabric. So I think that that's one of the, challenges. And I think that the learning curve here is that what I've learned and what I've seen is that the reality is I know that I'm transparent here. I know that I'm not, mailing out pallets of hot sauce at all or even close to that, right? So I know that when I see these other, small hot sauce companies, I know they're also feeling that sort of the same sort of, difficulty. And, just being, I don't want to sound arrogant here, but the reality is I feel comfortable and strong in my branding. I feel like I stick out. But if I'm having this, not just a challenge, I guess it is a challenge. If I'm seeing that it's expensive to acquire a customer and I'm seeing that it's hard to find the right people to order straight to the door, I can only imagine how hard it is if, you don't have the same, capability and same experience that I do from running ads and working in marketing. I think that's completely, I can only, I'm sure there's some sauce that quite frankly is the best sauce in the world, probably 10 times better than any sauce I've ever made or touched. That is very, that is just no one knows about, right? Or that doesn't know how to set up a website the same way or doesn't know how to, share that story. So it's really, you know, I guess what I'm saying here is that this is a hard, thing to get into unless you're at the farmer's market. And maybe there is, this is something else I want to cover, is there might be a roadmap of what is works and what is successful in hot sauce. And unfortunately, I've almost intentionally gone away from that. But it feels like, I'm looking at these other brands and they have great social media, but it feels this is more about the anonymous side as well. It feels like you're seeing faces and names, you're seeing these people in these events, and it feels like these big brands are, or like they're on the TikTok shop, for example, right? And to me, that's where I feel like I'm going to dilute myself and I'm going to lose that edge of cool and collectible
Right.
if I'm on the TikTok shop and I'm making videos where I record my face, with the captions in the UGC traditional style. And that's unfortunate because that is quite frankly not expensive to do to sit there and record yourself and to have the TikTok shop. And that's because TikTok is free to post, right? And there's a million great things about that. But it also is difficult for me because I feel like I'm trying to, stay within these walls that I've built for myself.
How long have you had this company going for? When did
Not
you
long.
start this?
Well, the
April?
actual, one more time?
April?
Yes, I would say just for some perspective, sauce has been around before that. But in terms of actually set launching April, yeah, I believe my first Instagram post is when I launched. So
Okay.
yeah, that's when everything officially went live, right? So it's not been long at all.
That's cool. It seems like you're well on your way, man. You're gonna see that growth eventually. Obviously, they didn't build Rome in a day, bro. I think you're doing pretty well for just starting this, what, 4 months ago ish? That's
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
it's it's hard because in the world of running paid ads, everyone talks about return on ad spend, and it
Yeah.
seems like inevitably, and something that I've come to learn is that with hot sauce, because it's all about repeat purchases, acquiring the customer the first time is always going to be,
Yeah.
unless you have some viral amazing, it might be we talk about novelty, right? There might be something that's incredibly, like an incredible novelty that sells at an incredible return on ad spend. I haven't figured that out. I don't know if I want to even enter that industry.
Yeah.
I would say that generally it feels like it's hard because you're seeing, it's a cost right now. It's more of a cost than a business, and it's hoping for that, slow growth that's eating away at some of your, disposable income.
Yeah. And I think that is also just kind of something across the board for a lot of hot sauce companies. We kind of talked about that a little bit. It can be a money sink. A guy that I had talked to not long ago, one of his sauces was featured on Hot Ones, and they bought a lot from him, obviously, because they're using it on the show and they're selling it on their website. But you know what I mean? Like he still is running a business and it's getting those repeat customers. That's what really drives a business is either
Right.
getting a bunch of bulk orders from a huge company, or having that repeat community. And I think that's where you're on the right track because like you give them a reason to come back. I mean,
Right.
and it's pretty cool, man. So I think we can crack into the sauce. I'm very curious. We've been talking about it and your whole philosophy behind it. And um I don't know. It looks freaking crazy, man. I love this sticker. Um, I love it. So I just want to go over the ingredients on the bottle for our audience, those who are watching. We got sour cherry, habanero, pepper, onion, apple, apple cider vinegar, evaporated cane juice, lime juice, salt, ground coffee, lemon zest, cinnamon, and clove, which I've never seen in a hot sauce. That's very interesting. It says it may contain pit and pit fragments. Um, so I'm guessing you just throw cherries in here and blend it up.
Essentially.
Cool. All right. Well, we're gonna oh, ooh, and you're perforated. That's so nice. I wouldn't expect any less from you, man.
But
You've you've uh you've exceeded my expectations and quality on every mark. So I'm gonna give it a good shake. And for those watching, if you can see it, this has some crazy texture. You can see almost everything in there in this beautiful, beautiful bottle. 12 tokens. Thank you, man. This is really cool. I'm excited. Smell test. Smells very cherry, but I can actually smell that coffee in there a little bit. That's really wow. How'd you come up with this? You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but this is wild. It's fascinating. Let's try
it's like the pressure.
it. Ooh, that has a kick right up front, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess my perspective is that if you like hot sauce, it's not over the top. But if you don't like spicy food, it's probably a little bit on
Wow.
the.
Wow. I knew this was going to be complex, but wow. It's hot right up front. It's almost reminds me of a jerk sauce. That's kind of what I get from it. Like jerk that has that like it's got to be the clove and the coffee and stuff in it.
Mhm.
Cinnamon, right? Yeah, ground coffee. Oh my gosh. It's so tasty, man.
I'm glad.
Wow. Well, I can see why you don't have bad testimonies. Whoa. It's hot. Well, so I would do this with like a jerk chicken meal.
Yeah, I think steak is another big one as well.
Steak. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I don't eat too much steak, but I mean I will. I like to. I just don't. It's expensive.
Yeah.
I'd rather spend my money on hot sauce and coins. Let's see. Not super vinegary in the flavor. The vinegar adds a tang to it. I like it. It's very well balanced. It is spicy. Like I guess like you're right. The average like person probably would steer away from this if they can't handle spice. However, I do think it is one of those things that it's so good that like I keep taking spoons of it. I'm about it. But I also eat a lot of hot sauce. But I think any one of my friends that's not super in the hot stuff would taste this bit. It's really hot, but it's really good, and they'd probably actually use it.
Yeah, I think there's a threshold, right? I think the quantity is probably based on where your spice
Mm.
tolerance. So I would say that it's really, I would say that it's definitely a hot sauce, but it's also not one of those sauces that are, the ghost pepper crazy, you
Right.
know, to you one, one of those crazy ones.
Mm. I don't really. It's funny because smelling it, I can smell the cherry. I don't really taste it too much. I like the texture of the sauce. I can like feel everything on it.
Right.
Now all I can feel is my tongue going numb. Um, but it's really interesting. So man, you said this was around for a long like before the company, so you must have had this in your pocket for a bit. But also even like talking about before you said you have another sauce idea up your sleeve and you don't need to divulge too much into that, but I can tell that you're just a very carefully thought out person in general.
Thank you.
And it probably took you a long time to just come up with this. It's really cool, man. Really
Thank you.
cool.
Yeah. And I guess my thought on, the other sauce idea, it's not that it's impossible. I would say that it's more, it's difficult to develop. And I would say that what I'm thinking about is that adding a value to a different group of people who would not buy sauce. That's just sort of the general trend here.
Gotcha. Wow. I like this a lot, dude. Um, I'm definitely going to be making a follow up video with this where I eat it on something.
That's right.
Yeah. So, hey, man, my face is burning up a little bit. I'm going to have another spoon, but while I'm doing that, why don't you tell everyone where we can find your brand and buy your products?
Yeah. So 12 tokens on Instagram, that's our main social, as well as 12tokens.com. So that's 1, 2, and then tokens. And that would be it. Pretty simple.
Mm, it's awesome. Okay, man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and chatting with me for a bit. Sharing this with me. It's delicious. Anyone that's listening to this, if you made it this far, please buy this stuff and try it. It's fantastic. It tastes really good. It's quite different from most things I've had. My eyes are watering, and it comes with this cool collectible token. If you get 12 of them, you get a cool prize. So, hey man, thanks again.
Thank you for your time, Matt. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Yeah.